I'm really excited today to share my conversation with Jason Lee and Tim Carpenter. Jason has been on the channel before. I first interviewed him almost a decade ago, which is hard to believe, but this is my very first time getting to talk with Tim, who I've also shared his work here on the channel before, and I got to talk to both of them about working together on their book Democratic Vistas, what it was like working with another person as opposed to doing it solo, and just photography and making work in general. So I'm excited for you all to hear this one. Let's go ahead and get into it.
Jason, you started it, so I'll let you.
Tim is one of those people that I discovered through Instagram, like many, many other photographers, so there's a slight positive side to Instagram because you can meet great people like Tim. And I've been turned on to so many photographers' work because of Instagram, ultimately. And so Tim is somebody that I was following and, admired. And I had gotten his and Nathan Pierce's book from Deadbeat Club. What's the title of the book, Tim?
Still Feel Gone.
Yeah, that's right. Where one side you flip this way and then you can turn it over and flip that way. And I loved it. I got it from Clint years ago and just liking Tim's work. And so just one day I was like, I'm going to DM Tim Carpenter and see if he wants to make a book together. And he was like, all right. And I said, I'm thinking, black and white, photos that haven't yet been published would be cool. Are you into it? Yep. And then he had the title already from Walt Whitman. And then we reached out to Adam and Taylor at Smog, and it all just came together in like a month.
That's interesting and also encouraging because I think sometimes people think that the time and planning and ideas and everything behind making something, sometimes it's like, oh, I don't have anything yet. I don't have a good, I think that goes to show sometimes it just takes just the one idea and things can really kind of come together.
Yeah, so we had a deadline of the LA Art Book Fair, which made sense since those guys were already coming out there to the ice plant anyway. So deadlines help, but I was just recounting this story to somebody else, Matt, and the not being precious about things and letting them go a little bit. I learned it because I assisted Alex Soth and Brad Zeller on one of the dispatch trips to Colorado. And I was driving, we were done. I was driving back to Minneapolis. And right away, Brad writing, Alec is in the car, like editing this thing because they're like, we're getting this on that press in like 10 days. And these are major figures, and they'll labor over other things. But I was like, oh, so cool. Like, we're just going to catch the energy that's here right now, not worry, and not be precious about this, but just do it. And I think it's, there's ways to approach different projects, but I really like that, freedom.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you brought that up because I'd kind of like to just go down that road right away because I think that speaking personally, that's one of the things that I struggle with more than anything is that sort of thinking things are too precious and overthinking things, worrying too much about is it not perfect? Is it, for either of you, if you're ever struggling with instances like that, whether it be actually making the work itself, both of you photograph the American landscape and have this clear love and appreciation. It calls you to photograph it and to continue doing it year after year. Does there ever come a time where you're like, I need a break from this, or I need to, how do you all kind of navigate that sort of thing?
That's a great question, Matt. I shoot and kind of figure it out later is kind of my thing that I've evolved. That's sort of evolved over time of like, there's always something new to see and connect with. So there's that motivation, which is a constant. And then I don't doubt anything kind of in the moment. If I feel drawn to something, I don't really try to figure out why. It's just, it is what it is. It's all very spontaneous ultimately. And then I have everything scanned and in a bunch of hard drives and stuff. And then I'll sort of sort through it later. But I mean, there are times where I'm feeling too tired to stop and shoot something that I've seen because I've been driving all day or whatever. And I've learned to kind of let certain things go because of laziness ultimately, or being too hungry and needing to find an exit or something. or just wanting to get back on the road after a quick stop in some town somewhere or whatever. But yeah, I'm forever motivated by, you know, what else? That's sort of, I always have that question in my head, what else to add to this big pile of experiences, basically, of seeing things as I'm kind of out there living in the world. I'm ultimately kind of in the back of my head adding to like a big library, essentially. And then I'm making little pieces of, you know, in the form of books from that library as a kind of ongoing telling, if you will, of my experiences, kind of just out there roaming around and documenting what I see. So I still feel motivated. And then with the book stuff, I tend to get a little bit precious too. And I think Tim's kind of similar, and you're focused on your own work and it has to be a certain way. And it's everything is very, very fine tuned. But for Democratic Vistas, it was Tim and I giving our files to Adam and Taylor and literally saying, do whatever you want with these. And it was incredibly liberating. And it taught me that even maybe with my own stuff, I can be a little bit more sort of liberal and toss things aside a little bit more and then maybe pull them back in. Just it was nice to let that go, because normally I wouldn't do that, because I'm very, very particular with the way I lay the books out and stuff. But this time it was like I didn't want anything to do with, there was only one request. I had a photo that I wanted in there and that was it. And we gave them like a rough size of the book and everything, and we let them go with it. And I'm glad we did that.
I'd say not only do I not struggle with that, I actually welcome that. I've said this before in other places, maybe in other ways, is for me, the camera is a way of kind of figuring out how I'm interacting, how I'm engaged, how I'm entangled with times of my life. And like, I would never make local objects pictures again. That was my first book. Like, and you know, like I've told the story, I made Christmas Day Bucks Pond Road out of a time in my life, which was not the happiest. You know, it was like 18 months and I didn't know, I was like, these pictures suck. I really thought the whole time during there, was like, I'm not connecting with the world. Once I kind of got out of that period and was able to look back on it, I was like, okay, there's something to be made. So like, and I can't make those pictures now, and I'm happy with it. Like, I'm kind of interested in observing the changes in the way, and you know, I'm getting older, man. And like, I don't bend down on these old knees as much as I used to do to make those pictures, you know, like, I mean, you know, and so you know, like I'm really trying to observe those changes in the ways that and you know, yeah, you're right. They can be a little frustrating. You're like, hey, man, for a while, you're like, I'm not really connecting. But then, you know, you kind of work things out and you get a little bit of, you know, maybe objectivity on that, or a little.
Yeah.
You know, but the other thing is, like, I've always been really inspired since Jason mentioned Nathan Pierce. He's like my hero for being like getting shit out, you know,
Yeah.
like. And like, I marvel at his ability to do it. And I'm trying to do more of it. And he and I've done some small one-offs, you know, like to do that as well.
Who did you mention, Tim?
Nathan Pierce,
Oh,
who,
yeah,
you know, who did a
yeah.
book with me. And, you know, like, I'll just to plug Nathan, but also like Ray Meeks does this. It's like, they do small things, artist books, zines, but you can also let them lead up to a bigger thing. Like Nathan's Midwest Dirt came from zine version, even like a bound version, and a lot of the things that Ray has done, the trade edition comes from a variety of artist books, you know,
Yeah.
and you learn those quicker things, and you build up to this thing. So I think there's a lot of ways to go about it. But listen, the anxiety that you described, you know, I teach a lot. I've taught, you know, 5-6 years now, and I work through a lot of people who have that stuckness, and I'm like, you know, like, go for the stuckness, kind of lean into it.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Mm-hmm.
best way to just get through that thing. And you may be interested in these things that you don't think are so good. You maybe when you look back on them, you might find.
Just to add to that, I think that's great. That's kind of what I was saying in terms of like, I just shoot, you know what I mean? I don't want to see something and like the form of it or the shape of it and question why. I feel some connection for some reason or another, and it might later be pointless. In hindsight, it might have, when I'm looking at that file, it might have been, oh, what was I thinking? But I kind of like that, because you're always like in dialogue with yourself, questioning yourself. And I like that part of the process. I don't do that there on the spot. I'll do it later when I look at a photo. And sometimes I'll look at photos like, did I shoot that? Or I'm so glad I shot that, And so you're constantly moving things around like a puzzle. And I really like that it's an ongoing process of moving pieces around from moving your body. Tim is always very, I like the way he talks about positioning himself against the world. I think that's always really cool, the way he puts that. And then you figure out kind of why later if you need to, or there's just the photos that just still feel right and you don't think much about them. But I like that it's an ongoing creative process, kind of like I liken it a little bit to like shooting a film and then editing the film. Do you know what I mean? Like you wrap a film and that's just the beginning. Like you still have to edit it, and bad editing can make a good script or a well-directed film not good, and vice versa. You can edit a bad film and make it better. The whole process of like exposing the film all the way to laying out the books and it's like one big kind of process for me. It doesn't end with just getting the film developed. It ends when you figure out how to put the pieces together with whatever the book is. So I really like that process from A to Z for me.
Myself, at least, I can speak personally. I find it easy to feel like I need to keep doing what brought me here, or the things that kind of work or the things that people respond well to. It's easy for me to think, oh, well, then I should, keep playing that. But there's a part of me that the second I feel that way, there's an immediate conflict where I'm like, no, don't just do what, someone left a comment, and it was a friend that left the comment. So I didn't take anything negatively from it, but I immediately felt this in me where someone said, I think my favorite version of Matt is just roaming around Ohio with some black and white film, one camera, just, and he meant it as a compliment. And there was something immediately in me where I was like, well, I can do more than that, and I immediately, I started to kind of push back on that internally. And I think what you said really spoke to that, where maybe there is an expectation from people who see your work, but remembering to, as you've said, like leaning in, even when things don't feel necessarily as certain or like it's going to fit what I've done in the past, I don't know. That's encouraging.
But the one thing, like, again, like when I talk with students, they're like, this is my cliche picture. This is whatever.
Right.
The flip side of calling something your cliche, it's also your idiosyncrasy. Like it's the thing that only you can do. And now you've gotten so used to it that you're kind of owning it. And I was like, I don't think that's a terrible thing. Like
I agree.
That's something you might want to observe. But like, it's strange. People who start to get their own groove then distrust the groove because they feel like it's a groove, and they're like, oh, that can't be, art or whatever. And I'm like, no, man, I think you're finally getting with the thing that you are. And maybe with a particular machine, like however long you've used it, if you use a new camera, it's a new groove, new lens, and I think, like, I think so many of the things that we start to distrust, we should actually kind of flip that around and be like, I'm going to just bore into this even harder and just see what that is. Because I do think it's been true for me, and it's been true for my friends, my students, is you will eventually exhaust that thing. You'll bore yourself. And I'm just like, yeah, the time when you start to bore yourself, that's better. That's when I know, all right, cleared that out, got it. But if I'm at just time where I just think it's cliche, I think that's still the time when you gotta just hammer it.
What aspect of that collaboration for each of you do you find that maybe you learn the most from, or the things that you take away from collaboration? Where does collaboration kind of come in for both of you in terms of just making work like this, as opposed to doing it solo like most photographers, how we tend to always work,
Fundamentally, it's less of a workload. You get to just hand the work off to somebody else. So that's awesome. And then for me, I found that it allowed me to feel strangely even more objective to the work. Do you know what I mean? Like more.
Like you were able to step away from it a little bit
Yeah,
more?
but well, yeah, even more. I mean, I'm always trying to sort of feel like I'm looking at something versus, it's tricky because you feel connected to something, but you ultimately are objectively viewing it and sort of valuing it as its own kind of entity, whatever that thing is, and just kind of being satisfied with the pictures as they are, and then seeing what they could become in somebody else's hands, as just kind of their own pictures. What are you now? What kind of value are Adam and Taylor going to place on these pictures, if any? But how are they going to see these, and how are they going to work with the puzzle pieces?
Right.
So it made it feel even more objective, and the pictures just kind of are their own little pieces of time, and they're now kind of in somebody else's hands. And I found that to be kind of interesting. Because when I'm working on my own books, I'm very much into like the margins and the image sizing, and I'm going to swap these around and this, and there's a lot of thinking with it. There's feeling, of course, but there's a lot of sort of math and structure and stuff like that. It doesn't devalue the pictures or take away the enthusiasm, but it's just a lot more thinking because you're designing something. Right. Having the pictures in somebody else's hands, it was nice to see what they looked like from that point of view, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I would do it again. Like, I would definitely do it again. Every couple of years, I would like to do another collaboration book to just hand stuff off and see how it feels in another universe, so to speak.
Sure.
I think because I'd known Adam and Taylor, I'd known their pictures, I'd known the books that Smog had done, but I'd also known them both, and I was just like, it was such an easy no-brainer for me. There was no reservations, like, because they're like soulful, thoughtful.
They are, yeah.
And so I was like, this is no problem. But like, Matt, you honed in, like we usually probably do take photographs out alone. Sometimes, it's on walks, maybe with other people, but it's a solitary pursuit. Yeah. And what I learned, I mean, I hooked up with the ice plant, and like Mike Slack and Trisha Gabriel, I trust them now so much all they want to do is elevate. Now I trust that. And even when we can like butt heads, maybe over a few details, it all works out, because if I butt heads, I tell myself they only want this to be better. And that is like, it's a massive gift to have human beings in your life who want your shit to be better. Mm-hmm. And to it. And they have made some decisions where I'm just like, oh my God, like that was latent in what I was doing. But it took you two to kind of bring that out. And like I figure I can get 90-95% there, but man, that extra 5-8-9% is where the magic is.
It takes it even higher.
Yeah. And like I've had many people, with TIS, Carl Willey, Nelson Chan, Jay Carrier, like they're people who like I want to know what they think, because I just know that they're motivated not about tearing down anything, but about making things better. Yeah, it's just to like get that last little bit out of something that I can't quite do.
I really hope you're enjoying this conversation, and we will get right back to it after I take a minute to tell you about the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. Basically, everything I do at this point runs through my Squarespace website. I've been using it for over a decade. If you need to build a website, there is no better place to do it. They have everything you need in one place with tons of different templates to choose from and drag and drop customization. It's never been easier to build a website and get your work out there. Not just in the middle of an algorithm, but actually giving your work a place to live. When I first built my website over a decade ago, I was using it for wedding photography, portrait photography, just having a place to show my work. Nowadays, I use that same website for my online store, so I can sell my photo books and prints, anything I want to do. My website is flexible enough to just kind of evolve with me over time. Easily one of the best investments you can make for yourself as a photographer is your website. So you can try this for yourself for free at squarespace.com, but when you're ready to launch your site, go to squarespace.com/MattDay and use the code MattDay at checkout. That'll save you 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. So thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and now we'll get back to the conversation. It is a very solo and solitary kind of thing, I think for most of us, and you can go and do photo walks and things like that, I personally never find myself engaging with the world with my camera when I'm with people. I feel like I need
Yeah.
that sort of like just no one with me, just be by myself, and I feel like that's when I make work that feels real to me and doesn't just feel like I'm sort of exercising, I guess, if that makes sense. Like I feel like I'm really connecting with the work in that way. Where do you guys or where have you sort of found most of that community? Because I think for a lot of people who may be listening, that's the kind of thing that they may be looking for. And if they're not in academics in any way, maybe this is just something they pursue for themselves in their free time when they're either not at work or with the kids or anything. Where do you sort of find that sense of community and finding people?
Community wise, I'd like to say camera shops. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
there's not a lot. You know, we have the little camera shop, me and Ray Molinar in Eagle Rock, and it's been created kind of like a skate shop. There's
Yeah.
a table, there's benches, there's a couch. People come and sit. They look at photo books. They meet up with their friends. And it's kind of like a little hub as much
Yeah.
as it is a little retail shop. I'd like to see a little more of that, you know, like the brick and mortar photography run kind of mom and pop shops where people can come and feel comfortable to ask questions technically, but then also like discover books and be able to sit and look at books and meet up with their friends and have a coffee or whatever. So we've tried to create that environment because it doesn't exist, I think, as much as I think it should. And then, you know, social media, of course. And then just on a personal level, every single day of my life, I'm flipping through photo books, you know, even if it's just like getting up off the couch, walking over, grabbing a book, flipping through it, landing on a photo, and then setting it on my table and then walking back and revisiting it. There's always some kind of flow happening, I think, creatively. There's a sense of ambition all the time, you know, looking for stuff. And so I feel like, you know, if there isn't a community nearby, you know, you can go online or whatever, but it's like sharing those private moments with photo books is extraordinarily motivating for me. Extraordinarily motivating. So if that helps, but yeah, maybe there is a local camera shop in your town, you know, that's been there since the 60s and whatever. And the old timer behind the desk is still processing film, and maybe you get to know him or so, you know, or maybe there's an art center, or maybe there's at community college, there's a photo class that you could take, or, you know, just reaching out that way. But yeah, it's there's not a lot of the camera shops. I feel like the way there are skate shops, it'd be cool to see that.
I agree.
I think it's a difficult question. I'm lucky. I live in New York City. I live in Brooklyn, you know, like, so there's events, you know, there's stuff going on.
Oh,
I
yeah.
see a lot of the time, but I do think it's hard, you know, even in mid-sized cities. You know, I was just in Kansas City. I was wondering if there's anything going on there. That's a city, you know, like, and that was hard, you know, like, I think I think about this because, I mean, I come from a business background, so I like kind of try to think about this whole thing, you know, like, well, how would I approach this? And like, got to be DIY. I mean, you got it. Like, if you want something, you got to kind of start it and figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and you may not succeed, but um, you know, I see people in like Montreal, you know, like they're creating a group, you know, big city, so, but like, you know, I'll just bring up Nathan again. He little exhibits in the auto repair shop where he,
I
you know,
love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
and
Nathan's great. Yeah.
the one thing I will say is that, you know, like, in our world, in this little world, we sell 750 books. That's a massive home run.
Oh
This
yeah.
gigantic audience world, you know. Now there can be like-minded photography people, but I think the kind of thing that the three of us are doing, and probably the most people who are listening to you, Matt, doing, it's, you know, it's just not that massive an audience. And so you just have to kind of also keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Flip side of that, the business side of me says, on Instagram, on whatever, I can almost find 90% of those people, you know, because we're kind of ourselves to one another. So, I don't know, maybe put out a call. Hey, everybody within, however many miles of Kansas City, within and however many miles of Austin. I mean, Austin just had a show because, like Matt and Brian. But, I mean, I think you got to kind of, if you want this kind of thing, you kind of have to make uh, that's scary. And like I said, I don't know that everybody will succeed, but that's not the only way I can figure it.
Yeah. Well, and the DIY aspect of it, I think, that's something that has been a sort of recurring theme that I've talked about on the channel because of that necessity of like, I'm in a small town in Southern Ohio. I mean, everything I've done has all just been self-published directly out of my house, out of my barn where we're in right now. It's all
great.
Very DIY. And there's an aspect of it that maybe it's because of the YouTube channel, which this YouTube channel is over 11 years old now. So nothing just happened overnight. It's all been, very slow and steady, but that's a really good point that you brought up, because that is how the outside, I think, view of it is. It's like, oh, wow, so you just put pictures in a book and people just buy them. And, it's like it's all started very, very small from my first zine, which was maybe 50 copies and over at the local Office Max printed and stapled. It started there.
Yeah.
But that, I think it's easy for people to think, well, there's not a system in place around me that I can just like get, plugged in and then just start going up the chain. And so they think, well, that opportunity isn't here. But
you always should be thinking about building this thing, and it's going to start DIY. And then, like maybe somebody sees what you're doing. And they're like, hey, I'm going to go back to this little business thing. It's like when I'm helping people find publishers, publishing right now is all about risk reduction. If you're going to put out the money, which a good publisher is going to probably pay for most or not, if not all of it, they're going to have to know that the risk that they're taking, especially on a brand new artist, is worth it. And if you have a little bit of a track record, if you're getting out there and doing things, being active and available at events, book fairs, that is helping them to say, hey, this is the kind of person I can work with. They're already doing some of this stuff, and so you're not just an unknown factor. I think a lot of people, you got to kind of take the impetus. You got to take the action to like get this ball rolling. The thing is, it will roll. If you keep at it. I really do believe that you get a bigger and bigger audience. People see this, but you got to start it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I get questions about that from time to time where people will say, hey, I've got this project. I don't know how to find a publisher. I don't know what to do. And I always am very straight up with them. And I say, look, I make all of this stuff myself. Yeah. I feel very much like an outside looking in terms of the photo book publishing world. For people who might be looking to get stuff published with any given publisher, you're saying that having that sort of like making your work as known as you can and putting it out there and being involved, is that the kind of thing that you think most publishers are looking for people?
If you a couple things you've put out at zine fairs and whatever, that's the way I'm going to, probably start to be introduced and be like, oh, and then if I see people repost or somebody does an interview, then, there's this whole thing in advertising called impressions. You have to have a certain number of impressions for somebody to start to take you seriously, to take your product seriously. And so it's really hard to kind of be cold calling, a new name, like, oh, here's a project, to somebody. I mean, listen, it can happen. It's happened many times and it will continue. But like, I just think if you really want this to be your life, you're gonna have to start to lay the groundwork for this. And that's going to mean you're gonna have to do some things and get some things out there and start, it sounds terrible to say build an audience, but you are kind of cultivating sort of, some people who might like what you're doing, and
your channel, Matt, I think is like, I imagine more than you realize, you've probably gotten a lot of people making zines over the years, opening their minds in different ways. Like, it's a pretty big thing that you have going on, and I think it's really cool. I think you've probably touched more people than you might realize in the 11 years that you've been on, you know, and I would just encourage you to continue that. I think putting out the message of, like, for example, calling people to get together with their photographer friends in their town and making collaboration zines,
Yeah.
and sending them to you to
Yeah.
review or whatever. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's kind of a cool angle, is to like, in the same way that we would have like encouraged skaters to get together with their friends and make skate videos,
Yeah.
like make home skate videos or whatever, and go to your local skate shop, try to get some attention, like keep grinding. It's discouraging. It can be intimidating, the whole publishing thing,
Right.
but it's not necessary. The
Yeah.
book you made, we sold those at the shop and everybody loved those books. Nobody, it doesn't have a publisher name on it. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so I kind of feel like in that grassroots way, starting from the bottom and just grinding, getting to know yourself and just making homemade books. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I love that aspect.
Absolutely.
I love that grassroots aspect. It's like with skating, you have different demographics, different genres, different styles, different personalities, different approaches. You have big companies, you have small companies, there's a mix of colors in there. And I think that's the same with photography. Yeah. The hustle.
I appreciate
the
that.
hustle. Yeah.
The hustle is very real.
Yeah. The hustle is definitely very real.
I appreciate that though, because that is, I feel like, as time has gone on and I've wanted to, the whole point of the channel is to just try and provide information that could be helpful. I didn't go to photo school. I didn't have any mentors in life that were interested in photography. Everything was just discovering on my own. And I think a big portion of the why I would want to share things is that sort of, I didn't have this access or just not necessarily access like an entry, but like just the access to the information and not just to the technical things, but like there's a whole world of photo books and zines and things out there that you can discover that are way more exciting than the new lens that's coming out. You know what I mean? And trying to like encourage people that for the long game to really stick with this, like find what you love about it and engage with it, and make the zines yourself, make stuff with your friends and share it, and that really I think is it goes a long way in terms of keeping the fuel going. Any advice, anything that you can give that you'd like to share to anybody who may be listening? Just the last bit alone was very encouraging for me, and I think for everyone listening. So I appreciate that. But yeah, what would you what advice would you give to someone who may be listening?
I would just reemphasize the DIY. You're gonna have to take control of some things for yourself and not wait for things to happen. But the bigger point that I've really started to believe that, I mean, I probably believed it inherently forever, is that every single one of us has something new and something that nobody else to show and to share. And it may take a lot of work to figure out what that is. Again, easier said than I like I think, going back to the body, each of our bodies moves through this world different. Only medium that has to even if you use it on a tripod, everybody else can do studio work, everybody else can do this, but like this machine attends your body the way like, and I've said this before, but like queer bodies, bodies of color, disabled bodies, differently abled bodies, all the bodies move differently through. There's so much to be learned from that. And the way that the one thing I always say is that, like, I'm going to go too far on a tangent, but I'm going to tell you is, like, kind of famous to talk about the index and what's in the photograph, and like Bart said, that has been okay, cool. What we all forget is that photographer has been. That photographer was in the same world, in the same wind, same cold, in the same heat and humidity that picture occurred. This is a thing, like, and only the photograph really shows us where your purchase was on the world, where your body was in the world related to that. And that is the absolutely unique and democratic thing. And that would be my piece of advice. It's just, again, I'm always going to be that shoulder in, lean in guy, but lean into that unique thing, that unique feature that you are, that moves through the world. And you're going to find something that none of us.
my thing that I had to sort of condition myself to understand, and it takes a lot of work and thinking, is to not question it. Question it. Don't question. In other words, whatever you feel drawn to for whatever reason, it's okay in that moment. Again,
Yeah.
you'll decide later as you grow and evolve why you felt drawn to that, if it's good or not. You'll worry about that later. My feeling is, instead of going out and trying to be a photographer and trying to make photographs, you're just going out at first to just kind of see what the fuck is out there, and
Right.
how you feel positioning, why you feel drawn to some angular shadow against a wall when you pass an alleyway. I'm curious about why that draw is there and why some people might notice it and some people might not. So to Tim's point, each individual is going to pass that angular shadow line in that alleyway differently. Some are going to notice it, some won't. Some might document it if they're a photographer from this angle, some might do whatever. Like, I find that stuff to be interesting, the why. Worry about it later, but just see how you go when you're walking down the street and see what pops out at you, and don't sort of overthink why. Just do your thing with it and move on and worry about it later. That genuine curiosity and motivation is really kind of where I try to stay, and I might ask questions later. I just want to say really quickly, the one day that I got to spend with Henry Wessel, about 2010, I believe, I got an afternoon with Henry Wessel, and we hung out at my house, and I was, it was like meeting Mark Gonzalez or something as a young skater. Henry Wessel had already been shooting for 4 decades, but he talked about photography and the joy of being out and that wonder and the curiosity. He talked about photography as if he had just gotten into it. And that was like beyond inspiring to me. He was totally unassuming. He was not pretentious in any way. He wasn't talking on another level that you are allowed to talk on because you're museum exhibited and you're a legend. He talked to me about photography like he had just discovered the Leica M6.
Yeah.
And he was like, dude, and it does it. I'm not kidding you. He was like, okay, so I take my Tri-X and I shoot it at 100. I pull it 2 stops because I like a flatter palette. And then the thing, we were chatting about photography like it would be you and me, Matt, or me and Tim. And I remember walking away feeling like, okay, this is important. It's important to remain curious. It's important to just kind of be there and be positioned against the world. And there's a kind of like real, just exciting satisfaction to feeling connected.
Yeah.
And curious. And you're just making pictures,
Yeah.
because there's something that feels right in that moment for you. That's the driving force. I think that's very important, is finding your own definition of how you are positioned against the world, as Tim likes to put it. And for me, I realized that day, if I ever lose that sort of wide-eyed curiosity about the world the way Wessel had not, then I'd be kind of fucked. So I want to I've always kind of just tried to just do my thing, whether people like it or not. I like to explore the way I like to explore. I've found my own kind of excitement about it. And I think that's what people should be striving for, is having fun with it and being curious and being, wondering about things. I think that's been very motivating for me.
Jason, when like I get somebody who's successful, they're like, "Oh, I'm just so frustrated. I hate photography." Like, do you know what the massive privilege you have?
That's absolutely right.
Exactly.
Means that we have the time to do this. I was like, okay, there's setbacks. Totally, I get you. Not everything's perfect.
That's
but
right.
Like, man, the whole thing over. Yeah, if you lose this wonder, this fact that we are able to do this kind of thing, I think you're you're gone.
You're totally. I
Yeah.
mean, I really, I wasn't sure what to expect from Wessel. He showed up to my house. He was driving like a Honda Accord. He had like New Balance dad shoes on. He was wearing cargo shorts and a t-shirt, and he looked like, the associate science professor at the local community college. He had a giant smile on his face and always his Leica M6 literally in his hand.
Yeah.
And he was ready to nerd out about photography. And I was like,
love it.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so so that's my point. Instead of trying to be a photographer and trying to make photography like photographs so that you can slide into the category of being a photographer and this photo looks like photography. Don't try to make it look like photography. Just make pictures of what you feel connected to, right or wrong, good or bad. Start with that instinct and that pull and that positioning against the world, regardless of what you're seeing in books or on Instagram or what people might be saying. That individual subjective connection, that's the spark for me, just like with skating. When you go out skating, there's no other person, there's no other people, it's you and your skateboard, and you literally control which way it moves. And you do a trick, you land a certain way, you get in, you feel, you're connecting with the environment around you, and you're sort of manipulating your board and your body up against the world, Tim.
Right.
And you're defining sort of like your position against the world as you roll around on a skateboard and determine what you do with that. That's really cool. That's kind of photography for me. And you just let go of whatever what ifs about how it might be interpreted or whatever. You got to let go of a lot of that and just kind of do your thing, and then worry about the math and stuff like that later.
I cannot thank Jason and Tim enough for their time and everything they shared in this conversation, and I cannot wait to hear what you all think. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below on this one. And also, if you're going to be in the Los Angeles area, I'm going to put information on screen right now. If you're listening to this episode and not watching, but you want to know where to see this work in person in Los Angeles at the Fulcrum, I have information on screen right now. All the information you need right there, so screenshot it, save it. I'll have information in the description down below as well, but definitely check it out if you're able to in person. I wish I were able to myself. Do me a favor and go for me. So thank you again to Jason and Tim for everything they shared here. We'll keep the conversation going in the comments down below, but that's it for today. So thank you all for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you soon.